Hi, so today I'm going to be showing you how to set up a new Dbt project with some of the Snowplow Dbt packages that you can model your Snowplow data after it lands in your data warehouse. So to start, let's open up a terminal and check that we have Dbt installed correctly. We can do that by typing dbt -- version, and here you can see I have Dbt core installed 1.1.1, as well as the Snowflake plugin, because I'm going to be using Snowflake today. So once in your terminal, once you're in a directory where you want to house your Dbt project, you just type dbt init, and Dbt will handle the setup of that project. So we'll start with requiring a name. So we'll just say Snowplow project. It's going to ask you which database you have. So here I only have one because I only have the Snowflake connector installed. So I'm just going to type 1. And then it's going to ask for some credentials, and I'm just going to fill in some dummy data here. I want to sign in with a password. If you have another warehouse that you're using, then this setup process might look slightly different, but in general, this is how that process is going to look. Dev. Cool. And then the default number of threads is 4, so we'll do 4. Great. So you can see that the Dbt project has been created. Dbt offers some links to help you get started, but it also creates this directory, Snowplow project. So let's cd into that directory immediately. Great. The first thing to notice is you have this dbt project.yaml, which has information about your Dbt project, as well as like what profile you're using. And profiles are basically a store of credentials that allow you to connect to databases. So this profile is something we just created in the setup wizard, basically, given by Dbt. And here you have some model configurations, which we can remove. And we can also remove the example models immediately. So one thing we do want to do upon initializing a new Dbt project is create a packages.yaml folder. Or file, sorry. And then what we want to do is we want to go to the Dbt package hub to double check which package we want to install and what all the packages are that are out there on the package hub. So if we just go to hub.getdbt.com, then we're in the Dbt package hub. And here, if we scroll down, we see all the different packages that a bunch of different vendors and creators have created for Dbt that play nicely with Dbt. So if you look at Snowplow, you can see that we have a media player, mobile, utils, and Snowplow web, and potentially by the time you're seeing this even more. So let's just play with the Snowplow web model for now. So the installation steps are very simple. You create a packages.yaml file, and you include the following in your packages.yaml. So let's do that. So this is one way of installing exactly the latest version of Snowplow web. But if there's updates in the future, another way of writing this is we can have a version that's greater than or equal to 0.9.0 and less than 0.10.0. So the reason why we might do that is because you can introduce bug fixes or patches or whatever in the 0.9.x minor versions, but there might be some breaking changes in the 0.10.0, so we might not want to automatically update to those. Another thing you could do is you could use git, and then you just need to include the GitHub links. So that would be snowplowweb.git revision, and here you would type in the branch name. And Dbt is also equally happy to install packages that are not necessarily on the hub, but that are on GitHub or GitLab or any Git repository, basically. We wouldn't recommend that for our package because we might be pushing things to main that are not necessarily packaged up ready to release. Again, they could include break-in changes, that kind of stuff. So we would recommend just following the normal convention of accessing our package through the web package, through the package hub. Sorry. Great. So how we install this is we just type in dbt deps. And then Dbt will go to the package hub, find this package, install it, and install all of its dependencies. So we can see that here. So we've installed the web package 0.9.1, the latest one. as well as our own utils package, as well as the DBT Labs DBT utils package. So all of those 3 packages are now installed, and you can find them in the dbt_packages folder, within your repository. So what we would recommend to get started is to run dbt deps, check out this Snowplow web, or Snowplow media player, Snowplow mobile, like whichever Snowplow packages you want you're using, and go to its dbtproject.yaml. If you go to its dbtproject.yaml, you should see a section with a bunch of vars, with a bunch of variables called vars. Basically highlight all of those and then paste them into your own project's package.yaml. So that will be here. And then we can just go ahead and save that. Okay, so once we've copied our variables in, what this does is it allows us to see what are all the variables that we can possibly use with this package. I mean, you can assume that this is an exhaustive list of the variables that are meant to play around with, and you can also see what the default values are of these variables made by the creators. So, for example, we can see that the Snowplow start date is 2020-01/01, which, as the time of recording this, it's 2022. That might be slightly outdated. If you're curious for what any of these variables mean, we can go back to the package hub in Snowplow web, and here we have a doc site. We link to a doc site, which talks about what the values of all these variables are and what they mean, when you should use them, for which situation, how you should configure everything. So here you can see the definitions of all of these, and we'll go over a couple of them today. So to start, some main ones are going to be the Snowplow start date, the Snowplow start date, and maybe Snowplow backfill limit days. So basically how the various Snowplow packages work is they look at, so they try and find the existence of a manifest table, which the Snowplow package creates, which basically keeps track of when each of your downstream tables were last updated. And if that manifest table doesn't yet exist, it assumes that the Snowplow package is running for the first time. Then it will start to process your data from the Snowplow start date. So in this case, the 1st of January 2020, and it will look up to 30 days, or the value of Snowplow backfill limit days, ahead of time, and try and process all that data. So if you were to run this for the first time, it would try and process data from 2020-01/01, the 1st of January 2020, up until the 31st of January 2020. And if no data exists in that date range, it just assumes that, oh, maybe the data hasn't arrived yet. So the next time you run, it'll look over that same date range again. What's really important is that when you start processing data in Snowplow, you change this Snowplow start date value to be the value of a date when your data first started landing in your data warehouse, because then we can start to process data. So if this is today's date, then the package is going to start processing data from today onwards. It's going to fill this manifest table that I mentioned earlier, and then it will keep incrementally loading from that manifest table. So it's not like every single day you have to update the Snowplow start date. It's something that you update once to make sure that everything's run correctly the first time, and then you can just basically ignore it, and the Snowplow package will run as intended from that point onwards. Maybe one other interesting thing that's worth mentioning is talking about the kind of namespacing of variables. So here you can see that we have the variables, we have Snowplow web, and then all of these different variables which are defined in the kind of context of Snowplow web. So what that means is that this Snowplow start date, the value of this Snowplow start date variable is only really going to be accessible by the Snowplow web package. If you want to name something more globally, you can just, let's say, dedent it by one, indentation level. And then what will happen in this case is that this Snowplow start date will be accessible, will be a variable that's accessible for all your different packages. So if any package or any model uses the Snowplow start date, it can then use this value rather than this one. And when that's useful is when you have the web package, the mobile package, the media player package, all three of these packages, and they all need the same start date. Well, great. Then you don't have to define it 3 times. You can just define it once in the kind of global namespace. But equally, if you've had mobile data landing first, then 2 months later you had web data landing, and then a week later you had media player data landing in your data warehouse, you can define all 3 of these Snowplow start dates in their local package namespace individually, and that will all work fine. So, assuming we've got all of this set up and working, what we can do is we can do Dbt Debug. I'm going to change my profile because the profile I made was a bit of a dummy one. We can run Dbt Debug to connect to our data warehouse, or to make sure that we can connect to our data warehouse. Cool, all checks passed. That's great. And then we can do a dbt run to basically run the dbt package and have everything work, hopefully, correctly. So as you can see, it's starting to run, it's starting to process some stuff. This will all work. This is, that's how simple it is to get set up with dbt. And as you can see, there was no data in the manifest. It's processing from the start date 2020-01-01 to 2020-01-31. And that's based on, again, this Snowplow start date as well as the backfill limit days. So those 2 are values that you might want to modify. You don't need to put anything in this models because there are no models currently. We're just running the models that were kind of created by default in the Snowplow web package. But if you want to build custom models, you can put them in this models folder here. Great. So that all worked, completed successfully. Let's just run it one more time, and then you can see that the incremental logic works without actually having to change anything. So here I'm just running a dbt run again. And again, it's going to run all the different models that I have listed here. So here we can see it says Snowplow standard incremental run. It's now processing data between 2020-01-30, 17:59:52, and 2020-02-29, 23. Right, so now it's going in that, again, Snowplow backfill limit days, so that 30-day increments. It's going to be processing that data over and over and over. If you've waited quite a while to start the data modeling, then you can increase the backfill limit days to 90 or 180 or 360 if you want. I mean, any value you want. It's just going to make the individual run take a little bit longer, but you will also catch up faster, so you'll have to do less runs. If you've started loading data yesterday and you want to start modeling it today, great. Then just leave it at 30. What that does is that makes sure that if a data model fails at some point, so if dbt run fails at some point and there's some bug somewhere and you need to fix it, you again don't have to worry about anything, and you're giving yourself a kind of a leniency of 30 days in which hopefully at one point in the next 30 days it will be fixed, and then you can just keep running your dbt run as normal, and things will catch up. So that's kind of the idea. So since it was kind of quick, let's quickly change this to 90 days and just see how that affects things. So again, notice that I'm changing the values inside my main projects, dbt project.yaml, and not inside the package. If you change it inside the package, it might be reflected for now, but as soon as you run dbt deps again, or packages get updated, those changes will go away. So here you can see we ran from the 29th of February 2020 until the 29th of May 2020. So you can see those 90 days are immediately being updated. So the package is relatively flexible. We can point to different events tables, different context tables. I mean, that's only really relevant for Redshift. And then there's some advanced configurations here, which you can get into again on the doc site that we link to in the package hub. You can kind of read more about the different variables and how they work. Anyways, I hope that's helped you get set up with the basics. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us on Discourse or on GitHub or anywhere you can find us really. And we're more than happy to help you set everything up. Thank you.